Yeah. So today I want to talk about something that I brought up before. So this is basically adding on to it. And it's life raising a special needs child. And what I'll say off the bat is that raising any child at times can have its challenges. And the reason for that is because every child is unique. So what you have to remember a lot of the times is you're not raising children. What you're doing is you're raising people to become adults, because they're going to be adults, hopefully if everything works out, they're going to be adults way longer than they were children. So you have to kind of build that foundation, and that's what I try to do when I raise my kids. Every child is different, so you're going to have different obstacles for each one. Now, being a first time parent, it was difficult to have a girl. Like my oldest daughter, she went through situations that I was unaware of and I didn't know how to address, because especially in junior high. Now, being a girl in junior high, at least in the 2000s, how long ago was it? 2010s, I'd say, is way different than being a boy in junior high in the 90s. So we had way different, ways of dealing with stuff, and at times like we were bumping heads because I didn't understand her situation, but I try to, slow it down and say, okay, what is it that's really bothering you, and get to the bottom of it. Now things are a lot better. But yeah, that's how it went for my daughter, uh, the oldest one. The boys are a little easier because boys like anything. You know what makes boys happy and shit. So you just like video games and playing, basketball with them and shit like that, and they'll be good. So the boys are easier, at least for me, because I know what it's like to be a teenage boy. So it's a lot easier. Um, Now, the most difficult for me situation has been raising my youngest daughter. My youngest daughter has cerebral palsy, epilepsy, global developmental delays, and what is it called? Some sort of she can't really see well, impaired, some kind of impaired vision. I forgot what it's called, but she has all of those situations she deals with. Right, the worst being epilepsy. That at times could be scary. We have to constantly be on her, but like I'm moving ahead, so let's go back a little bit. One thing I'll say off the bat is I tell everybody, and I've said this repeatedly, is that my daughter has taught me way more than I could ever teach her. You know what I mean? So like I've learned so much by having her, and it's crazy. So there's gonna be challenges that come along the way, and these challenges are way different than the challenges I have with any other kids, because the challenges with her at times could seem like life threatening. You know what I mean? There's been times where she's been in the hospital and we didn't know what the hell was going on, and we're looking for answers like what's next, what's next. And the doctors, you could see they're trying to stay calm, but they really don't know what's happening. So when you're dealing with professionals that haven't dealt with the situation like the one your daughter's in, or your child's in, it could be overwhelming at times, and you're like, what the fuck, what are we gonna do? Like, you guys don't have answers, we need some kind of answers. And oftentimes they're gonna be like, we'll find out, we'll get to the bottom of it. And as a concerned parent, that's not enough, man. But there's nothing you could do. Like, you didn't go to school for that shit. My wife, she'll look it up. My wife is very smart, so she'll look that shit up and she'll be like, I think it's this, it could be one of these three things. And that's what's crazy, is because the doctors do the same thing. It's like they can't just run tests like, oh, this is exactly what it is. Sometimes it's like it could be this, it could be this, or it could be this. And that's like, fuck, man. And you just, it's just troubleshooting. It's like, fuck, now what? That didn't work, so let's try this. And yeah, it could be difficult, man. Really difficult. Um, Especially like I'll move ahead now back to the seizures. So when she has seizures, like it takes a lot out of her, and we have to constantly be on her to make sure she's okay, because if she has seizures at the wrong area, she could collapse, she could crack her skull. There's all kinds of shit that could happen, so we have to make sure somebody's around her at all times. And she's like, this is what's crazy, people forget that just because you have special needs doesn't mean that you're not an individual. Like, she's still an individual. She wants to be by herself. Sometimes she's like, man, get the fuck away from me. Like, stop fucking smothering me. Especially she's entering her teenage years. You know what I mean? She's not quite there, but she's she's a little, she's a female. They get their moods, and like they want to be left alone sometimes, and it's like you want to give her space, but at the same time, for her own safety, you can't let her go off by herself uh, too long. So it's crazy because like there's balances with everything with her. You have to have these balances because if you slack off, like you could miss something. And one time, this is what's crazy is one time we weren't even like it was. I was watching her. She was in the room, and the room was right next to the kitchen. So I stepped out of the room real fast, just to tell my wife something. And within like probably like a minute at the most, boom, you hear glass shattering, and she stepped in the glass, and she has a high tolerance for pain, so she cut her foot. Luckily, it was just a little small, little small cut. But we learned, or I learned from that day, like I can't even step out of a room, like not even a minute. Like all I wanted to do was tell my wife something really fast, get some information, and go back. But nah, that was too long, and so it could be rough at times because it not it's takes time, and sometimes it's like, man, like you want her to feel as much independence as possible, but it's not going to be it's not going to be possible for her, unfortunately. So those are the challenges that come with it. Like there's IEPs too. Like you have to make sure the school district, while she's away from you, this is what's crazy, is because while she's away from you, you have to make sure she has the same care that she'll have in the home. So it's not that we want anything extra. We just want her to have the same care that we'd have at home, because at home we have lots of different things for her. And at school, they can't all the times take those things because we need those things while she's at home. So we have to fight for that. We have to fight for the resources. Luckily for us, we've only had a fight maybe 1 or 2 years. The rest of the time, the school board, they're really good about it. So they give her what she needs. Um, so those are the challenges, but it's also could be so rewarding. Let me tell you, like my daughter didn't learn how to walk until she was 4 years old, and I could tell you when she took her first steps and she walked on her own, like that's 4 years worth of waiting that we were like, yeah, like you don't know how good that feels, because there was a chance they said that she might not ever walk. You know what I mean? Like, and for her to get up and start walking, and like it was so exciting. There's times where she'll beat an illness because she was often, especially in the earlier years, hospitalized a lot. And there's times where she pulls through, and you're like, yeah, like I knew it wasn't gonna defeat you. I knew it, but it's a trip, man, because these are things that small wins, small tiny wins that a lot of people take for granted, that we like just appreciate so much more. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it's unexpected. Sometimes it's like, nah, that isn't gonna happen for her. But when it does, like it just could be like you be so proud of that shit. Like hell yeah, you did it. And let me tell you the ups and downs now, because there's situations oftentimes that you can't control, and it's not about her. Let me tell you, like a lot of the stuff is stuff that happens to her that makes it difficult. It's not her. Like I don't mind being around my daughter all the time, or like even right now to make these videos, like I had to step away, so my wife's in the pad and she has to be looking out for her. So it's a teamwork. You know what I mean? Like if my wife wasn't there, I wouldn't be able to do all this. So it definitely is a team effort, and I appreciate her for that. So, but let me tell you, there was a time where my daughter got, and I talked about it a lot of times, when she was hospitalized for hand, foot, and mouth disease. She refused to eat. She almost died, and she was starving herself. We tried to take her to the hospital time and time. Nothing worked. We took her to the emergency room twice. They sent us home. Finally, we went to the children's hospital, admitted her, and it was one of the roughest times of my life, for real. But they put a feeding tube in her, and brought her back, and we were so excited, like, yeah, like she's gonna make it through. She pulled through. But our challenge was to get her to eat by mouth again. And little by little, like I said, those small steps, like where she started taking ice, like she has to train herself all over again. And but those little wins, like we were excited. We finally got her to the point where she was able to eat by mouth again. We were so excited. We're like, yeah. So those are the ups and downs, right? Now this is where it goes down again. Is she her she started growing up, so her seizures started coming back. So they, like I said, a lot of times they don't know exactly what it is that's triggering them. So they're like, why is there an increase in seizure activity now? So what we did is they threw everything at us. So we're gonna need to up her medication. We're gonna put her on CBD, and we're gonna change her diet to a ketogenic diet. And they did all those, and that brought her seizures down. So by her having the ketogenic diet, what sucks is it's a formula, so it has to be put into her tube. And you don't know how rough it is to be eating something and your daughter look at you like, hey, hook me up with some, and you're like, I can't, and she doesn't understand that if she eats that, it could trigger her seizures. Like, so there's some definite rough times, you know what I mean, where you're like, fuck, man, shit's out of your control. But I'm telling you, it's so fulfilling. I don't think I'd be the man I am today. Like, she taught me about empathy. She taught me just to see the world in a different way. Like, even with my other kids, like, I love them to death. Don't get me wrong, but even with them, I always felt like I had a chip on my shoulder, and I was always like, this is a dog eat dog world. You know what I mean? Like a lot of my attitude didn't change. It wasn't until I had my youngest daughter that my attitude really started to change about life in general. So I'm grateful for her. And shout out to the single moms out there, that do it on their own, because there's a subscriber. I don't know if she's comfortable when we putting her name out there, but she holds it down. She holds it down, and she doesn't put her business out there. But after a few conversations, I know that she has two kids with disabilities. She has three kids in total, two with disabilities, and to do it by yourself, I can only imagine how difficult that is. Because for us too, it's really difficult. So for one person to do that on her own, I gotta take my hats off to her, for real. Like, I take my hat off. That's commitment. That's true motherhood. And at most, that's a true warrior right there, because she's putting it down. And yeah, so that's all I gotta say about that. Those are my thoughts real fast. And we'll do another video in the future, get more into it. But that's all I gotta say for now. I'm out. Peace.